Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Megan and today we're doing the third of my NaNoWriMo planning videos, and today we are talking about settings and world building. Now, world building can seem like it's only important for like fantasy or science fiction stories, but it's still, it can be important for other stories as well. I wouldn't know much about that because I do write mostly fantasy and sci-fi stories. Settings are one of my favorite things to describe in stories. I like describing settings, particularly in fantasy stories, because you can get a little wild with it. With settings, you can have big settings or little settings, and I've often found that settings contain settings within them. Like, for example, my NaNoWriMo for this year is on a spaceship, so within that spaceship you have a dormitory, and a viewing deck, mess hall. Those are all settings within settings. They're places within places. Like in a fantasy story, you'll usually have a kingdom, and there'll be cities and towns and villages within the kingdom, and within that you'll have certain buildings and things. Whereas in perhaps a contemporary story, you might have a small town with a coffee shop within it. And world building isn't just settings, though. I mean, it can be, depending on your story, I suppose, but like, for example, my sci-fi novel, I need to detail the technology that this futuristic society has, and the religions, both that have lasted from Earth and that are new, and also governments are important in fantasy stories as well as sci-fi, or can be anyway, and those are all a part of world building, which is really fun to do. It's one of my favorite things to do, and it's the main reason I prefer fantasy and sci-fi, because there's more world building to it. I mean, you need to build a world in contemporary like stories too that take place in the real world, but it's a little different because you're drawing upon real things. I don't find that as fun as making up my own stuff. I love making up crap. Torty does too. Right, Torty? I love making up stuff. It's just so fun. Like, for example, the story that I'm currently working on, there are 6 elemental kingdoms, and each has its own different sort of form of government. And in fantasy stories, if your fantasy story has magic, you have to build a magic system. Flip side of that is in sci-fi novels, you have to build the technology. Though you need technology for fantasy stories too, I would find. Like, what kind of technology is in each. So one aspect of world building, and my favorite aspect that I find in books, is maps. I love maps. I just picked a random book and a random map. I haven't even looked at this one. I haven't read this book yet. This is The Caller by Juliette Marillier. Rivers, you got oceans, you got trees, you got mountains. I love maps. I can't make maps very well, but I love them. I love them anyway. Not very good at making them, but that's not what's important. As long as you know where everything is, even if you can't draw a map, that's what's important in a story. You need to know where everything is, because your readers will notice if you say that, say, the town of whatever is 5 miles away, and then it takes 8 days to walk there. They will notice that. That is one of the reasons that world building is important. Now we'll go over to my Scrivener project, where we will build a setting and do a little bit of world building. Though you shouldn't get too wrapped up in it, because then I think you become J.R.R. Tolkien.
Settings. So here's our places folder for our settings, and there's 2 things to world building: the settings and like the world building. Like, there's more to world building than just the setting, but the setting is a big part of that, so let's start with that. Ooh, I don't like that setting sketch. Let's make our own. New text. Name it. Setting. I should just delete these. Goodbye. So, let's create a setting template. Bam, there it is. So let's create our most important setting for this particular work is going to be the spaceship that they are going to spend basically the entire book on. New from template, setting. There it is. Label it. There's nothing for place. Here we go. Setting notes. Because we didn't have one made, I guess. What I love about Scrivener is being able to make my own labels. I can label them whatever the hell I want. So I'm gonna label this setting notes. Ooh, I don't like that color though. We're gonna change that color. Okay, that works. I like that. Put that there. And this is the... Did I name that setting? Oh, no. Alright, okay, so... Murder ship. That is not going to be the name of the spaceship, for the record. Because nobody knows it's a murder ship until it becomes a murder ship. But we know it's a murder ship because it's part of the pitch to the story, so we're calling it murder ship. Not sure what I want to name the spaceship yet. It needs to have an important name. It is located in space. Settings within the settings. Let's see, we'll need a mess hall. Dormitory. Maybe a library. Spaceship, so it needs escape pods. Geography and appearance. Metal. Lights. And shit like that. Amazing. Government. LMAO. It doesn't have peoples because it's spaceship, so we're gonna get rid of that section. Founding. Oh. Founding. Built in whatever year. So there we go, there's spaceship. We could put a picture here, or we could put a nice little description of the spaceship, like this. So that's our most important place, but we also need to worry about world building. So I want to create a world building folder. This is mostly other stuff that isn't necessarily place related, but is along the same lines. Oh my god, stop falling in the folder. There we go. And let's change its icon. You can add your own icons to Scrivener. World building. So for world building, we don't really use a template. So for world building, let's see. Let's make a timeline because this takes place in the future. So we need a timeline of like a history building up because this takes place in the far future. 2000XX, first colonization. There we go. And the current year is probably something like 2222. That's not actually going to be the year. But it makes a good placeholder year because we need a bunch of stuff in between here. Technology. That's a huge part. Mythology and religion for this one because it's space, so there's probably some new religions and stuff too. World building, and see for technology is like space traveling technology, terraforming technology, actually just terraforming. What else is important in space? Medicine, because I'm sure medicine is improved by whatever year this is. Technology is important to any story. Like unless it's a contemporary or like set in current day, you need to know what the technology is like. Like if it's fantasy or sci-fi, you need, like if it's set in the past or the future or its own world, you need to know things like this. Technology and medicine, like light rails, space traveling technologies, some sort of hyperspace bullshit. World building, places. World building, places. Places and world building.
That is it for world building and settings for this NaNoWriMo planning video, I think. I hope. I'm probably forgetting something. I'm always forgetting something. That completes this video. Feel free to tell me down below what kind of settings you like to world build. Tell me about your world building. Tell me how you build your worlds. Little video. No. Thank you so much for watching. I hope I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.